Hello, teachers, and welcome back to Teachers Help Teachers. I'm your host, Esther Yoon, and it's been a while, hasn't it? Thank you for being patient with me. Just like you, I started the new school year, and just like you trying to get acclimated with this new schedule, it was really hard to produce a new episode. But I finally got to carve out the time. And with me, I'm so honored to have my guest join me today. Her name is Laura Briones, and she's taught for 30 years. And within the 30 years, she's lend her services as a math coach at our school site and other school sites. And she's taught all grades K through 5 except for 4th. So she comes to us with a wealth of knowledge and expertise. So please help me welcome Laura Briones to the program. Yay, Laura. Go ahead and show your wonderful self.
Oh,
Thank you for sharing that webcam with me.
those jellies just make me feel so happy because it just transports you to a different location. So
Yeah,
that
tell us about that. Where
was the live cam from the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and they have several live cams that, I like to share, but that one's my favorite.
And on that note, the reason why I brought Laura Briones onto this program is because I want to talk to you. Let's talk about setting up a virtual field trip and guest speakers during remote learning. Just to give you some context, teachers, first grade, the first grade team and I, we're in the middle or at the tail end of a unit on being a responsible citizen. A big idea in that unit is being a community member. One of our colleagues found out that one of her students' uncle is a fire captain at one of our local fire stations. So she invited this captain to speak to our students about being a firefighter and a community member, and convinced him to grant the students an all-access tour of the fire station. So in turn, she produced a wonderful virtual live field trip for our entire first grade class. So thank you, Sabrina Wiseman. We're giving you a shout out. So let's see how it got done. So Sabrina, she and I exchanged some messages. I had some questions for her. And so she shared some logistics with me, and I want to do that with you, audience. First things first, set up a date with your guest speaker or docent and a time, and confirm it with each other. And then set up the Zoom link and send it to the guest speaker. You'll, of course, make yourself host, but also send it to your colleagues, and make sure that the colleagues send that link to all the students well ahead of time. Sabrina said, make sure you make that link available a few times, the day before, the day of, in however way you share your Zoom link. Sabrina also said that she prepared her guest by letting her know what the theme, the idea, what the tour should be about, so that it's relevant to what we're learning. And she also provided the guest with a few student-generated questions that she and her students prepared a few days ahead. And that's important because if you had a live Q&A during Zoom, there would be a lot of connectivity issues, lull in waiting for people to mute and unmute as questions are being asked and answered. So she emailed these questions to our guest speaker ahead of time, and so he went through it at the end of the tour and answered those questions. And in this preparation, I have to say, and Laura would agree, that it went really, really well. And I had to share this information with the rest of the teaching community in case you were curious about having a virtual field trip. So Laura, thank you. Talk to us about how you helped on your end.
So, like you were saying, we have to prepare the students and the community that we work with, the students and the parents. So yes, so I sent home a letter to all my families with the link and explaining what would happen, the logistics of that day. And I talked to my students about being responsible and respectful when we went to our field trip. So I reminded them of the norms that we practice every day. You know, we're going to be good listeners. We're going to use eye contact. We're going to concentrate in the class. It's like we concentrate, we have eye contact, and we're good listeners. And that's how you know, we practiced in the classroom. So I just reminded them that this is what was going to happen. And then I explained to the students as well that it wasn't just going to be our classroom, but all of the first grade classrooms, that there would be over 100 kids, and they might see some of their friends, and that they would not be able to unmute themselves and start greeting, you know, their friends. So I did share with them, you know, you can give them a quiet wave. And I did notice some of my students were doing that. So they were following the guidelines that I had set up for them.
Yeah, so to reiterate, you sent the link through an email letter.
Yes, I
Right?
emailed my families.
Yeah, and then you went over the norms, and you again made sure that this was a really important part. I thought that the students understand and follow staying muted during the presentation.
Yeah, that was the one thing that we were worried. We were worried about, that they would stay muted.
And something that Sabrina made sure to do was she made all of us co-hosts, meaning all the teachers co-hosts and TAs if you have them and they're present. And we're going to get into why that's important, okay? But Laura, first, did you notify your...
Hold on, I did have to, like you were saying before, it was important not to just do it one time. So a couple days ahead, we talked about it. And then the next day we talked about it again. And we talked about the logistics, that first you come to my Zoom class, then we will switch over to the other Zoom link. So, you know, we talked through it a lot so that they would be, you know, ready for when the day came.
What happened with students who, because our students are so young, but like I said, it worked. Everything worked that day, and it's because of the planning and problem solving that the teachers definitely did. So Laura, what happened to those few stragglers who like
So yes, when we were preparing to switch over, I had like 3 or 4 students who were waiting behind, and they're like, Miss Briones, I need help. I need help. I'm here. They weren't really there by themselves, but they're like, my mom's not here. So I'm like, okay, who's there to help you? Do you know how to get on Zoom? Because some of these kids, you know, we've been in school for over 20 days now, they know how to get on Zoom. So I'm like, do you know how to do Zoom? Okay, go get a pencil and paper and I'll give you the Zoom code. So the kids that were behind, I did put the Zoom code on the screen again. So then they were able to join us as well.
So that's great. So we need to be mindful of the few stragglers who might be in our homeroom Zoom and make sure that they get the
everybody was
information. So just be switch in and out, make sure that everybody is present and not left behind. So Laura, let's continue to talk about logistics. Did the administrator or office staff know about this event, and why is that important?
Yeah, they, yes, Sabrina was very organized, and she did inform our administrator. And that was really important because our administrator reminded us that even though we're in our own homes on Zoom, we were still going to be transported to a different location, and we had to protect the privacy of our students. So she wanted to make sure that the kids didn't have their names on screen when we entered into the virtual field trip. So together as a team, we came up with the idea of having the kids put their initials on their screens when we entered, and we asked the parents to do that, or the kids to do that themselves before they went to the new Zoom link. And then the first grade teachers were all made co-hosts, so we were able to go on to whoever's first grader did not change their name and change them to protect their privacy. And also, it's really important that the office had this information in case, like you were talking about, my stragglers, my kids who didn't have the information or needed help, they had a place to call and get the info. If someone did call the office, they would have that information too.
Yeah, thank you. And finally, Laura, what should teachers expect during the live Zoom? What happened during the live Zoom? I know we all checked in 10 minutes before, so can you talk about that part? And then what happened during the presentation?
I think that you should expect very excited students. They were all, very excited to join this Zoom and visit, a new place. And also, some students needed help, so we had to rename them. And even though we did go over the norms, there were those few students who weren't muted. And so as teachers, since we were all co-hosts, we could go through and scan the screen to see if we could mute those students that weren't muted on their own.
Yeah.
And most of the kids were, following the norms that we had provided, like good citizens.
Exactly. So, it was about, well over 100 students who were present during that live tour, and they followed those norms. They followed those directions, and the teachers jumped in whenever there needed to be a mute here and there, but for the most part it went really
they were focused. And they were listening, and when we got back, they told me everything that they learned.
That's great. And this is a great way to hook students who may have dropped out of Zoom class, or just participating in class. I know that some of us, our colleagues, had students return after gone for several days, but returned to us because they wanted to be a part of this experience. So it's a great way to rehook some students who need to be back in school again. Laura, how were you inspired by this experience? Would you consider inviting other guest speakers and seek virtual tours?
Oh, definitely. I'm going to poll my families and see who's willing to share their skills or knowledge with the students, and also my friends and families. What else can we learn? Where else can we visit? Because we need to be just because we're in Zoom world, we can still explore to many different locations. And I want to see more.
And so that's why I wanted to produce this episode, because there are lots of teachers who want this experience for their students and for their grade level, but may need some direction. So hopefully, teachers, this was informative, and go out there and seek this experience for your students. Like Laura said, it was a big hit. They were engaged. They learned a lot. They made lots of connections with what they were learning in class. So thank you, Laura Briones, for joining us on Teachers Help Teachers. And teachers, will see you again on another episode.